Ikigai is about experiencing yourself, your true essence, and your purpose, and living that out in harmony with everything that you do.
It was all about, small beginnings and, just starting with little changes and doing little things and then, celebrating, the successes that come from that and embracing all the positive habits.
I think we all strive to have some sort of self-realization. We want to know the dude in the mirror. But I've just found that people of extreme intellect, which I'm throwing you in that category, really struggle with the who are they as an individual side of things. All right, I practiced this one. It's Ikigai. What the hell is Ikigai?
Great. Oh, that's awesome that you got it first time and everything.
Right.
That's
not
bad.
He told me that I couldn't call you the Ikigai. So
Ikigai.
No, it's not icky. No, that wouldn't be the ultimate branding name.
No, probably not.
No, it's especially good for a Marine, buddy.
Right.
Yeah, right. So Ikigai is it's a Japanese combination word, and it just means life purpose. And the way I define it is Ikigai is about experiencing yourself, your true essence, and your purpose, and living that out in harmony with everything that you do. A lot of people will talk about it from a career standpoint. You'll see a Venn diagram that shows that, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what they're willing to pay for. And that's a good thing, but it doesn't encompass every aspect of your life. And so the way I teach it is that it's in harmony with whatever you're doing, whether it's, I've done it in my life being a disc jockey, being a jarhead, being a Marine, being an executive at a Fortune 500 company, or a 8th grade girls basketball coach. You can experience your Ikigai in whatever you're doing.
Okay, so I'm hearing harmony. I'm hearing this kind of stuff. Break it down more big birds for me. So is it a lifestyle choice? Is it a thought process? Is it a philosophy? Or is it a tool that I put in my tool belt?
It's actually all those things, really. It's an approach.
Well, that doesn't make it any easier.
Yes, the answer to your question, Donnie, is yes.
Narrow it down for you.
Perfectly right.
It really is an approach to life. So it is finding those things that you enjoy, that you're good at, that get you jazzed. So I'll give you a quick example from my career. So I had been at the company my last company, which is very, very good company. I started a transformation program there. So I convinced this 150-year-old company that they needed to change, a successful, highly publicized company that they needed to change. And it was a great program.
And you were working for them at the time, so you weren't a consultant or anything, right?
No, I was from the inside, so naturally I didn't have any credibility, right?
Right.
You gotta be a credit. But I got them to do it because I'm all about helping people or companies live into what their best self, right? And so we did that for a number of years, and then I could start to see that they were tiring of it, and those kinds of programs can kind of fade after a while. And eventually, my department was eliminated, and they had another job for me. And I looked at that, and this is where understand your Ikigai and that core sense of self and what you're really into helps, because they offered me a very nice job, no problem at all, or I could take an early retirement. And I looked at that job, and I could see it would have been 5 or 6 years of just soul crushing drudgery for me personally, right?
I know that
because I understood myself and what drove me. Whereas I had a peer, an executive vice president, who had been at this company his entire life, and he was in this reduction as well. And we got in the elevator, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, because I don't even know who I am. I mean, this job has been me my whole time and my whole life." He kind of defined himself with his job, whereas I defined myself, in the sense of Ikigai, my essence and why I'm here and that kind of thing. And so you can see that same life experience hit me differently than it hit him, and that is part of the value of having that understanding of your ikigai.
That's fascinating. You got a post out on LinkedIn. It's one of my favorite ones. And if you guys aren't following David Marlow on LinkedIn, you're really missing out. I know you got your Ikigai, newsletter as well, but I followed you mainly on LinkedIn. But this one really hit me because it's something that I think we try and do in our company all the time. And I'm going to move a couple of your statements around to get the point across. But it says
Okay.
a pencil is simple, a laptop is complex. Make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. Tell me more.
Yeah. So as you just said, we need a certain level of complexity. There are things that I can do with a laptop that I can't do with a pencil. And yet we often make things way more complex than they need to be. Right. And so the idea is make it as simple as it can be and still do the job. So I'll take the transformation example again. I just shared with you. The idea of transforming a whole company is really, really complicated, right? I mean,
Very
that
much.
just blows people away. So take it down to its basic level, and that is understanding what's going on and helping make it a little better. Right down to the way I introduced the concept was to go to. I did 3 small pilots in teams, and these are operational teams. So at our company, it was a life insurance company. They were processing life insurance applications, as you might assume. And so I just sat down with them and asked them, what do you do? And they said, look, Dave, you seem like a nice guy, but we're really doing everything that can be done as well as it can be done, and we can't possibly improve anything. And so you're really wasting your time. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you talk to me about what you do? And so I just asked them. I pointed to this one woman. I said, what do you do in this particular part of the process? She goes, well, I make 3 copies of the form. I fax one, I shred 2, and when the fax is confirmed, I shred the original. I said, you do what? She said, I make 3 copies of the form. I fax one, I shred 2, and when the fax is confirmed, I shred the original. I said, say that again slower. She got about halfway through the 3rd time, and she's like, why am I making 3 copies? I'm like, I don't know. I'm the dumb guy here, right?
Right.
So, and they needed to make them in the past, and for obviously in life insurance you have privacy issues, things, so they had to shred them, and they just sort of on the fly updated their process. And they were so embarrassed that they were kind of open to it. I said, well, yeah, maybe that kind of tells us that there might be some other opportunities that we could do here to make some
Yeah.
improvements. And so we mapped out their whole process, and boy, it was like the light came on for them, right?
Well,
But making that concept as simple to them, obviously that's a really fun example, and I was really lucky I had one that obvious. But
right.
it's simplifying things for them and making them understand what that means.
Zig,
Hell,
Zig,
you cut their office supply budget by
by
66% in about
right.
2 minutes.
So Zig Ziglar
Uh,
tells the story of the cake pan that, or no, it was the ham. Every year at like
uh,
Christmas time, his wife would cut the ends off the ham, and he
mhm.
finally asked her one day, "Why do you do it?" He goes, "I don't know. My mom always did it that way." So she goes and asks her mom, and goes, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off the ham?" She goes, "I don't know. My mom always did it that way." So she went and asked Grandma, great grandma, I guess maybe at this point, why she did it. And she goes, "I only had a square pan. The ham would only fit in that size pan." So, but they followed it for generations to come like it was some sort of magic
Yep.
thing. And I think oftentimes we are doing steps and things because that's the way we've always done it, but we've never questioned why we've done it that way.
Well, and you
Yeah.
used a word a little bit earlier, transformation. Um, I do digital marketing when I'm not hanging out with Donnie and doing Success Champion stuff. And that term digital transformation, just in general, it's so daunting for people. I won't even
Mhm.
use that word because it's scary. And they think it's got to be these huge moves. And we're going to do this huge big thing. And it's gonna be painful and hard. And it's not going to be fun. You did a post a day or so ago that I absolutely loved. It was a process post, surprising enough, but it was all about small beginnings and just starting with little changes and doing little things, and then celebrating the successes that come from that and embracing all the positive habits. I think that's the key, and that's something that we talk about a lot with our members. Just make a little pivot, make a little change. It doesn't have to be this huge giant change in your lifestyle. Just do one thing and then tomorrow do another thing.
Yeah, and I like the connection you made to that. There's a principle we teach in Lean, but it works for Ikigai or anything really. Kaizen, so small incremental change, and uh, the Kaizen that I teach takes that fear out, because, like you said, when you're facing something daunting, you'll just put up your walls, right? Um,
Or
and
put off or
or put up,
procrastinate.
yeah.
And be
There
like,
you go.
yeah,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
take care of that tomorrow. That is a huge. That's going to take a lot of mental lifting. I will just do that tomorrow. I
right.
do that on occasion too. It's like, oh, let's do these things instead. They look way more fun.
Well, it aligns really too with as small as simple as possible, but no simpler too, because what you want is, you don't want this complex system. You want small working systems and complexity built on that over time, right? You've proven systems that continue to work. You don't start with the complexity and then simplify it. You simplify it and then add levels of working, functional, tested complexity, right? So you're not tacking on a dozen processes to it.
So I'm not a process guy at all, and Kevin's been working on me to get adopting this whole process habit and getting into it. And I get it, I understand it, but the idea of breaking things down to a process is not something that comes naturally to me. I'm just okay, cool. There's the hill. Take the freaking hill. I don't need to tell you how to take the damn hill. And what I found is you can't just tell a lot of people to take the hill without giving them some sort of step by step how to get there. So, I'm a break it down to the dumbest thing possible type of guy. Like, if it can be 2 steps, let's make it 2 steps. But my 2 steps and maybe the 20 steps that actually need to be taken, aren't always interpreted. So how do you look at a process overall and go, okay, this is how you should give it the first run, like the first stage of it before you add the complexity to it and then make it simpler from there?
Something as simple as just understanding what's your starting point and what you want the end to look like. I mean, I'll take Post-it notes, and you can probably see right here. I've got like a million of them all around me, but I live with Post-it notes. That's where earlier you mentioned the office budget was reduced by stopping the faxes. We more than made up for that with Post-it notes, because you can, yeah,
Tell me it was like at
process
least the
it out.
big post-it notes, like the 2 foot by 4 foot sheets you yipped off a wall.
Right,
So.
right. Um, so just starting with even just that and understanding it and understanding what needs to get done. I mean, I have built processes with people as well as, and you talk it through, so you understand the contingent elements or what you might have to correct to make that work. I don't know if you saw the movie Founder about the starting of McDonald's,
No,
but
actually,
they
no.
it's a great movie for understanding process. If you really want a cool example of both the importance and how you can introduce process to just anybody. I mean, the McDonald's, not the yeah McDonald's brothers, right? They started this thing, but they were uh, making routine the process of delivering the hamburgers. I think Ray Kroc was in on it at that point. But anyway, they went to a basketball court and like mapped out and like what I call Shakespeare. They acted out what they were doing, and that way they could start to see that, well, okay, if I'm going to put the tray over here and I'm doing this, then I can't have it way over there. I got to have it right here beside me, because I'm going to take the hamburgers off and put them on the buns and that kind of thing. And so anything that can help you see and visualize what needs to get done, and then what's the impact of doing it, right? I mean, how many times have we walked into somewhere and go, what were they thinking when they put X here or X there? Well, they didn't map out their process, right?
It's
They
like
would have
walking into a
seen it,
restaurant and you don't know, do I go to the counter to order? Do I go sit at a
right,
table? You just know that they did not think about the customer flow or journey in that conversation.
right,
You know,
yeah. So
that's
making it visual is a big part of it.
no, I love that. That's probably
Well,
something we should do, map out a little bit more, Kevin.
well, that Shakespeareing it is huge. I'm in the military. I'm a staff officer, so I'm the person who plans on how we're going to take the hill before we tell Donnie to go take the hill. So, and that Shakespeareing, that concept is a huge part of our planning process. It happens multiple times in that program. Once we come up with, and before we even issue the orders, we have to come up with different courses of action, and then we literally all get to map and move things around, talk about what's going to happen, and here's what I need to do, and then everyone gets to respond to that action taken by the ground forces or whoever. And then once the orders are placed, then we Shakespeare it again with all the commanders of the subordinate elements, and we do combat arms rehearsal, which can take like 2 days if it's a complex operation. But it's always been amazing to me all the fine detail that we discover about our plan when we do that. It's like, we're not going to have enough fuel for the tanks. We need to move forward refueling point up so that they can actually get fuel and keep fighting. And little things that you would think they're completely obvious, but get lost when you are, you're coming up with this big process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the value of it. Like you said, those visualize it and you see it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, no, you can't possibly think of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so set up systems that enable you to get that feedback before it's urgent, like when you're trying to take the hill.
Yeah.
That's not the time you want to figure it out.
Crap, we're out of fuel. Hey, does anyone have any ammo?
But in a corporate-like setting, building out processes and everything and trying to maintain who you are as an individual can become really difficult, especially the larger the company gets, because, and let's be honest, corporate America is not the place you want to stand out and be an individualist. Most times you want to go with the flow, fit in, and follow the leader, especially if you want to climb any sort of corporate ladder. It's more about achievement than anything else. So we've been talking about processes, and I get it, but how the hell does somebody maintain their personal integrity of who they are, maybe in an Ikigai method or way, when they're also trying to do things the corporate way and follow the corporate processes without losing their shit, if you will?
Right. Well, there's one of the things that I found effective in my own, and I was at GE at the height of GE when it was the Fortune 1, and I mean they had some very strict policies and things like that. It was understanding what the outcome was. What did they need? What did even the company, even bureaucrats, right, have a thing they need? They may have a rule for something that we think is silly. But if you'll spend that time and understand, well, what is it that you actually need? What do you need to get your job done? I mean, you just need a checkbox. Okay, I'll fill out the form or whatever. Just don't bother me on other stuff, right? But getting that understanding of the need. So I shared the other day about Bob the bad manager on LinkedIn was my dad's worst boss he ever had, and Dan the dandy director, right? And Bob was a terrible manager and just took the edicts from the people above and just put them on the staff. And Dan looked and went deeper. And the example I gave aligns with this really well. For Dan, that came down, and I've done this myself, that comes down with budget cuts. You're going to have budget cuts, and here's the layoff package you got to give everybody. It's like Dan took that step back and said, well, what do you need? Do you need people laid off, or do you need to save some money? Well, we need to save money. This is how we figured we'd do it. Well, if I can find a way to save the money, can I keep my people? And they're like, yeah. And they did. And I found that to be true even, again, myself in GE, or being proactive and thinking ahead. So again, that was a company that every year they were going to do budget cuts, and we knew that, and they wanted more productivity. And so instead of waiting for someone to tell us to do it, it's like, think about what would we do? And we would start with my team, January 1, what are we going to do to find 10% efficiency this year that we can turn back to the company, and do it by keeping the team intact and keeping our workload, like human, right? Not 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And we would work on that and build that muscle. So that was on the team, and that grew into the team so that we didn't have to respond like a lazy manager would do. A lazy manager would just go, well, I'll just get rid of 3 people and put all the work on the other 7. And that's how you can avoid that to a degree, obviously. The other is having that sense of who you are and understanding, well, this isn't really, I'm valued or what I value. And maybe that's not a place that you can implement that, and start thinking about leaving, because no job is worth. I talk about an integrated self. So from an integrity and that kind of integrated, right? And when you're not living out your ikigai or living your values, you're not integrated and you're disintegrating. I mean, I think we can all relate to that feeling of we're doing stuff. I don't mean like like stealing money for the company. Not that kind of. It's just not your values. It's not the way you want to live. It's not the kind of work you want to do. It's not the leader you want to be. You're disintegrating a little bit every day you do that. So the more aware you are of that core, of yourself and your values, the more you can say, I can try and do it in this environment, or it's not worth it, and move on. Because there are some that you just can't. I mean, just some,
right? For sure.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about priming. What is it, and how do we use it?
Oh yeah. So priming at the definition is just sending a signal to someone of what they need to do. So we get primed with warning signs on the road, like a curve is coming ahead and things like that. But in business, priming is and the example I gave the other day was Van Moof. I might see if my Irish lips can say a Dutch name, but Van Moof, I think. Yeah, the bike. So they made bikes, the electric assist bikes and things with a lot of electronics in them, and they were getting damaged in shipping because people are like banging them around thinking they're a Huffy, right? They're just a kid's bike. So they primed people by putting a big screen TV, an outline, blackout of a big screen TV on the box, and then putting the bike over the top of that. And people's mind, without even realizing it, thought, oh, this is a delicate electronic device. And they stopped banging it around, and without messages, without anything.
It makes sense. You see a big box with
right?
You see a big box with a TV on it, you're gonna handle it a hell of a lot more careful than you would, a bike. So
yeah.
So they used a TV to prime your mind, make you think that there was a TV in a box versus a bike. How do we use that? Where and how do we prime, and what should we prime in our businesses?
So, as an example, if you make a web page, you want to make sure your upper left. They call it the F mode, and make sure I say that right. The F screen. It's an F shape. Is how people scan a website. So you start at that and down and over and less on the right hand corner. So you prime them by putting the key things that you want them to see in the upper left hand corner, right? And that way they'll go to the most important thing. You don't have to tell them. You make it visual. You make it easy. We used to do stuff in the Marine Corps to prime ourselves, right? Without telling, like the equipment I worked on F4 Phantoms, and the electronic countermeasures is what I did, was radar and radar jamming. So radar signals are very strong. Radar receive signals are very faint. So if you would mix up the wiring and put the receive signal into the transmit signal into the receiver, you'd blow up the circuit, right? And we're talking about Marines here, so we need to be very, very straightforward. And
color coded, right?
Yeah. So there were 48 connectors on the box that I worked on. Every one of them was different. There was no way that even a Marine could put the wrong one on, because they were each one different shape, different color, and they could only go on one way. And so
what's that game I grew up as a kid with you put the little squares and X's in the box and you don't get it in time, everything explodes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's opportunities like that, though, to tell your customer what you want them to do to make your web pages easy to work on, to make you talked earlier about where do I go, what do I do, making those pathways obvious, and wayfinding. So wayfinding indicators. The other is you can use them for visual management. So I had I ran the project, all the IT projects for a company at one point in time. And it was like, we had $300 million that we we wanted in projects, and we were going to get 30 million, something like that, right? And so we had 40 managers all wanting their project done, and we had to winnow that down. Well, we took this really good process and did it, and got what we thought was the top priority ones. And I take it to the CIO, and he's like, well, how do I know you took the time to do this? And so I went back and I redid the chart, and I showed a block, and I had listed the number of projects and the dollar amount, and then another block, and then I put dates on there, and then I put a nice little triangle that showed 300 million down to 30 million. And that's all I changed on it. Same information, otherwise handed it to him. Just, oh, I get it now. Because I was showing him, okay, we started with this much, and now we have this much, and we did it over this period of time and these dates without any additional dialogue. When you can prime something for somebody to say, this is how you read this thing, it makes it so easy for them to do their job. And if you can incorporate those kinds of things into your products, into your processes, it streamlines the thought, the thinking, the asking, the, oh my gosh, we got to have the do not push this button signs, right? It's like, well, let's make it so they can't push the wrong button.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, Kevin will tell you that often he will show me visuals to get me to see what he needs me to see. But I'm a highly visual person, so that makes sense to me. So should somebody map out the customer journey, if you will, of whether how they're going to flow through their website or maybe the sales process, and then figure out specifically where should we prime them to go? Am I saying that correctly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so it's almost a step back even from what we were talking about earlier about make it as simple as possible. Understanding just what's the experience, what are they going through, and what are we doing? I remember we were doing a journey map with a disability insurance team, and they were talking about, well, they just got to fill out this form, and then they send this here, and they check this box, and they're telling me all this stuff. I said, okay, let me just take a step back here for a second. So let's just imagine that the person who's filing this disability claim is disabled in such a way that they're in a full body cast. Now, how are they doing this form? And how are they sending this in? And how are they checking this box? And the guy goes like, I never thought about that. I'm like, these are disabled people. There's a reason why they need this insurance payment, right? So think about, what are they experiencing? They may not have access to the internet. They may not have access to the forums, whatever. It may be a caretaker doing it for them because they're incapacitated completely. So getting that understanding, first of all, just what are they experiencing? And then how might we make it easier for them?
David, you fascinate me, and here's why. You're very much a process guy. You're kind of a systems guy. You're very much in this analyzing. And then you talk about things like doing deep work, and you talk about things about like personal transformation and things like that. Those two worlds don't usually collide. How does a guy who's process oriented, freaking like you are, all of a sudden get over almost into this hippy dippy world of self transformation and stuff? I mean, and I don't mean to bust people's chops like I'm saying it's a bad thing. It's just it's blown me away that you would go to that level when people that are typically so logical in nature can't make that conversion over. Help me out here.
Yeah. Well, don't you think your average Marine Corps sergeant is just like a hippy dippy, easygoing guy?
Yeah, but that's because we're freaking knuckle draggers that we don't think, right? We just go and
Yeah.
it works. I mean, I think we all strive to have some sort of self-realization. We want to know the dude in the mirror.
Mhm.
But I've just found that people of extreme intellect, which I'm throwing you in that category, really struggle with the who are they as an individual side of things. So this really fascinates me that you're able to do this.
I appreciate your kind words, and it is a I'll say a combination of the exposure I've had from a skills standpoint. So I've been introduced to Lean and Six Sigma. Well, actually, process even way back radio days. I mean, people think you get on the radio and you just go, "Hey, how's it going this morning? Here's the latest record that I'm going to play for you." No, there's a scheduled time. I mean, right down to you couldn't play a certain type of record out of the news. It had to be a certain variety. Had to be so long. You had to hit your commercial break at 7.5 minutes because a half of a quarter hour got you the full credit in the ratings thing. I mean, this is in the 70s and 80s, and I still remember it. That's how processed it was. And you had
That doesn't
things
surprise
that
me.
yeah, so a lot of process, and of course the Marine Corps and things. But then, I mean, I think some of it is too the double braided, Marine Corps leadership principle, right? That we had to think about two things, not just mission accomplishment, the welfare of the troops, and they were co-equal. And if we thought only about the welfare of the troops, we would never take the hill, right? We'd be
Right.
risking the yes. But if we only thought about the hill, we'd unnecessarily risk our people. And so that early exposure to both sides, right? You got to get this stuff done. There might be a better way to do it. And I know what you guys experienced. I imagine it's similar. Is there just wasn't room for excuses either. It was like, okay, we got to figure this out. It's like, well, they didn't get this or that here, and I mean, if I had a dime for every time a staff NCO said to me, and here are the three things I'm going to do to see what I can do to fix it, right? And then add in the elements, like you said, of personal self reflection and understanding that true transformation, and that is a loaded word. You're right there. But true transformation takes more than just rigid process or just hippy dippy stuff. I mean, it's got to be a combination of both. You've got to invest in both things in order to make it work. And that's what I love about it. You can apply this to you individually. You can apply it to product development. You can apply it to service. You can apply it to just running a business, running a family. It's that whole spectrum, though. You got to think about all of those things. It's not just process, or it's not just caring about the experience and how people feel and that kind of thing. It's all of that.
God, this plays into one of your other quotes on here. It says, "Don't be too certain in your doubts or your beliefs that you don't spend at least a little time challenging them." So, I mean, tell me more, because the quote above it by Henry Poincaré, I probably screwed his name all to hell. But his quote above that is, "To doubt everything or to believe everything are two equally convenient solutions. Both dispense with necessity of reflection."
Yeah,
Tell me more about that, because I think that's a lot of what you're talking about now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not that you never stop and try something, but just understand you may or may not have the right answer. And the example I was giving was all the people are sure they had their bracket right the other day, right? And within I think it was just one day, there were only 15 of the 20 million ESPN brackets, so people that officially go on and log in, and so that's a traceable pile of records, right? Only 15
all these
had
expert gurus, yeah, it was like 15
right,
were still perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so a big part of leadership and life is a bit of humility and curiosity, and by that I mean just be open to the idea that you may or may not be right, or there may be a better way to do it, and you operate with certain assumptions, and you certainly try things, and you experiment, and you learn. That's the process, right? It's not that, okay, I've got the answer and I'm going forward with it. And especially as a leader, you've got to be open to understanding, do your people have a different idea? Is there an insight? Take the disability example. I mean, there were people that were certain that was the process and that's what it had to be, and they were executing on it. Yeah, okay, I'm all for execution. We got to execute or we won't stay in business. Let's take that step back and say, are we doing it the right way? And are we doing it for the right reasons and doing what we say we want to get done?
That's huge. So, did this way of thinking for you come about after years of working in corporate America and contemplation after the Marine Corps, all of that? Or has this something you've been working on for quite a while? Because I'm really fascinated that someone like you, and I don't mean that in a negative manner, um, really thinks about this kind of stuff. Because, like I said, it does blow me away that, because most people don't think this way naturally, especially when they're in the more process intellectual way. So is this something you've been working on for a while, or is this something you like stumbled across and you made an ultimate decision right then and there that boom, this is what you're going to do?
It's definitely been an evolution. I'll give you a quick example. You'll kick out of this. So we have our grandkids over a couple times a week. My grandson is right-handed, but he eats sometimes left-handed. And I said to my wife, like, you know, Easton's his name. Easton eats left-handed sometimes. Don't you find that interesting? She goes, no, I don't find that interesting. I just want him to eat. You find that interesting.
Exactly right.
And then, so now you know what my wife deals with like all the time. Right. No, I don't find that interesting. Just want it done. But yeah, it's definitely an evolution over time and personal growth as well as learning. I mean, I think when I was introduced, I studied design at Cornell, and when I got introduced to that concept of design thinking and looking at things deeper at the human-centered part of that design, is like, oh, this is the finish. This is the connecting point to all these other things. It's not just this. Instead of this, it's this complements the Six Sigma, the lean, the process, and all of that kind of comes together.
One of the things you talk about on LinkedIn that I absolutely love and I want to learn more about and figure out how I do it in my world is that concept of deep work and monotasking. You know, Donnie and I both run multiple companies, multiple clients, multiple demands on our time and our attention. You know, email, texting, everything is constantly going off. So this concept of monotasking and be able to really focus on one demanding task at a time is really interesting me, as opposed to the common concept, which is multitask, and you have 25 different tabs open on your computer, which may or may not be a thing on my desktop right now. And
it's a thing.
It's totally a thing in like 4 different windows. So tell us more about that. How do you make that transition from, having everything open all the time to really being able to focus on that one powerful thing at a time and then moving on to the next one?
Sure. The first thing is to recognize that multitasking is a failed practice. I mean, we all thought, I'm Dave, I'm a recovering multitasker. I get it, right? Because we were kind of primed for that behavior. We thought that was doing it. And we thought, well, we're getting all this stuff done. And what studies have shown is that each time we task switch, we lose, right? So we're moving along, we're getting something done. We lose attention, we lose focus, we lose momentum. And then it's that much longer to get back. And the more you switch, the more loss there is in each of those. They begin to kind of multiply and replicate through all of your steps. And so just even understanding that and the interrupts that we have that are built in, like you said, the notifications and just stuff. I mean, there's something every day I get on my phone to do something, to do a task, and I'll get a note. Do you want to turn on notifications? And I want to go, no, I don't want to turn on notifications, because I want to be able to focus on that, and do that deep work where you get those insights. Where, to your earlier question, Donnie, I mean, you have to invest some deep time and some focus time to get that level of insight into what you're doing, what you need to do personally or professionally. And we're just this and that and going all over the place. And it's very, very superficial stuff. So there's a number of techniques, that can help us. One of them that I like to share is called the Pomodoro technique, which Pomodoro just means tomato. If anybody goes, oh, what does that mean? Tomato.
Does it really?
Yeah, it does.
I didn't know that meant tomato. I know the Pomodoro theory, but I didn't know it meant tomato. That's funny.
Yeah, it's just, and because I think the guy that came up, and I forget his name, I'd give him total credit. This is not me at all. Had a tomato timer, right? Like you use in the kitchen. And I think that's where it came from. But 25 minutes of focused work is about what we can do and stay on, and then taking a 5-minute break. But just doing that, I mean, like these things right here are my savior, especially since little S savior, especially since we're working from home, because I don't know what it is, but everybody in my neighborhood has decided tree removal would be a really good time for that. Right now would be a good time for tree removal. So there's trees. It's like the Lorax came through here or something. I don't know if there's any trees left. But turning these on and focusing and then setting a timer, I use my phone, but you can use anything for 25 minutes. It is amazing how much work you can get done, and the quality of work is so much better. And and you're relaxed, and yeah.
I do it with my headphones, or even I'll just turn on background music so I can tune out everything. But especially if I'm doing a business development activity, connecting and the like, man, I can just turn on music and just completely zone out in that. And I'll have to set a timer, and I do 15-minute increments. I've just found I work better in 15-minute increments. But that ability to know that you're going to work until the bell is a really cool aspect, and it's amazing how much you can get done when you know that when the bell goes off, it's like jumping off a bowl because you rolled 8 seconds type thing. That activity is done, and you will work so much more proficient doing that.
It's I've started playing with the focus timer on my computer on Windows, where it'll literally, you can say, all right, I need 15 minutes of focus time, and it'll turn off all your notifications from all your apps, and nothing will pop up, and no whistles will go off. You won't get any little pop-up screens saying Donnie's just messaged you with a whole new cool idea that he wants to have in place by tomorrow.
That happens often.
So, and I've started playing with that. It's really interesting because it is all those little communications that I think are my biggest hurdle, because someone will message me. I'm like, "Ooh, let's just take care of that now," so it doesn't go on my list and get lost in my pile of other stuff that I need to do. So then I'll just completely stop and I'll answer them again. That conversation, I'll come back. Now, where was I? So I'm really kind of actually enjoying that whole piece of not having to be connected to everyone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's great that you're using the tool too. I think that's we should use those for helpful tools instead of creating the churn, right?
And I just literally kind of happened across it the other day because I noticed like my notifications are off. My computer's like, yeah, it's 8:00 at night, and so we're not notifying you about stuff anymore. I'm like, what the hell? So I went in and looked, and it's like, oh, there's this whole thing where I can set up this whole how it interacts in my world. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. So,
David, on episode 133, we had Lori Seitz on. She's the owner of Zen Rabbit. And her and I had this huge debate over meditation, and we got a little heated over it a little bit. But she taught me something on that episode that really blew my mind. I go for my morning walks. I'll turn on a podcast and I'll walk for 45 minutes, and it helps me get really, really laser focused on the business or whatever I'm trying to work on. And she looked at me and said, "You realize that's meditation every time you do one of those damn walks." And then I read your freaking post that says running is meditation to me, and I wanted to punch both y'all. Because for me, meditation was like that, freaking cross your fingers. So walk me through it, because I think so many people try and meditate, and that's all they think about is this 5-minute or 10-minute Zen crap, whatever it is. How the hell is running meditation?
Yeah. So if you think about just the idea of meditation, is just focusing on being just where you are and present, and the cycle of breathing. A lot of times people do it through breathing and a breathing technique. They get a yoga mat and they do. Speaking of priming, you start doing your meditation on a yoga mat. You start feeling relaxed when you start that. I feel the same way when I lace up my shoes. That's priming my mind. I'm already ready to go. And that release that I get, but the cycle, and you can do it. I do it multiple ways. I do some breathing where I'm just really aware of my breathing and the cycle of my feet, and others I'm just embracing I happen to live out kind of in the country. And so I get a view of wildlife now and then. And sometimes I actually had a deer like run right in front of me once. And I was like, oh, that's how zoned in I was. I didn't see an 8-point buck like 5 feet in front of me. Just like, wow. But yeah, you can do it anywhere. You can even do it, driving. Driving, obviously, you don't close your eyes. You don't close your eyes when you're running. You don't need a map for any of that. It's about being aware and doing what you're doing and being all in on doing it at the time. and enjoy it. I don't listen to music, for example, when I run. Now, a lot of people do, and that's perfectly fine. I don't, because it just doesn't work for me. I can't get into it then. I'm not experiencing that
Well,
meditative
and Lori
state.
suggested I turn off the music when I do it, but I've just
Yeah.
found, whether it's ADHD or whatever, having that distraction helps me focus because I don't have to listen to the
Hmm.
podcast, but it distracts me enough that I can think. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just been a tool that I've
Yeah,
used.
that focus is common with a lot of sports. I wrestled in college, and I remember multiple matches where I was so focused on what was happening at the moment that the sound of the crowd was gone. Literally you could hear
Mm.
like a voice. And for some reason, I didn't always pick the voice of my coach. That was the one that I heard, which I was like, how do I focus on which one I want? And so I'm not some random person yelling at me from the crowd. Um, but
Knowing
you,
that if I
I've,
ever see you at a wrestling match, I'm gonna be the random asshole, be like, crossbar, kick him in the face.
so, but and I've talked to other athletes, tennis players and different competitive athletes that have had that that experience in their sport, where they're in their competition, their match, and they're just so ultra focused that everything else just kind of stops. It's like those
Mm.
TV shows where you're doing something and and everything else around you just slows down. It's like everything's moving really slow while you're going through your world. And it's until we had that conversation with Lori, there was never really any comprehension that that was you're basically meditating. It's while Donnie was mad about that realization, I thought it was kind of cool.
Well,
Donnie now has to
you
tell everyone that he meditates on a daily basis.
there
Well,
you go.
there's just so many phrases out there and terminologies and the way things
Yeah.
are put that when you're brought up a certain way and then they're presented, it's really hard for you to go, oh, well, that's something I'd love to do. It just doesn't make sense. So it's always cool when you can find people that will put things in a frame, or if in your words, prime it in a way that
Mhm.
we can wrap our heads around, and go, oh, all right, well, that makes sense to me. So walking can be meditating, those type of things. So um, always fascinating. Dave, I got to tell you, I'm fascinated with you in general. I knew this was going to be a fun conversation. I try and interact and engage on your content as much as possible as I get there, because you put out some fascinating things. Tell people a little bit about the daily Ikigai, because it's a really cool thing that you do every day.
Yeah. So I wanted to do something creative last year. I picked create as my focus word for the year, and just really spurred me to do something creative, right? And love LinkedIn, and love the conversation there, and wanted to be able to go a little deeper and share some things with people that they were asking for, that really LinkedIn just didn't lend itself to. And so found Substack, and what a great platform too. Just a terrific platform, and they grow every day. I'm not trying to sell you on them. I'm just a user, but love Substack. But what I did was just someone asked me if I would make a calendar, an Ikigai calendar, like every day to take it off. I thought, oh, maybe I could create a virtual calendar, and so started writing something every day, and that's what Daily Ikigai began. So it's something simple and short. I added in audio, so I read them too, because some people
Which is great because
like
you
that.
got a voice for radio. You got a face for it
Oh,
too, but the
thanks.
voice is awesome.
Yeah, no, I got the face. Yeah, I got the face for radio. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Um, yeah, you got that in there. Good job. Good job.
I did. I was waiting for that
Um,
right moment.
mm. And in fact, I'll share something with you that I haven't shared, even outside of the my Ikigai community. Is it's going to be starting something on there called IkiQuest, and that's where I have the daily Ikigai, and you'll be able to go every day and get a quick 1 minute read on something. IkiQuest is going to be more about the tools, some of the stuff we talked about, even today, on how to do certain things and how to incorporate that into your life, how to incorporate it into your career. Because that's another thing people are asking, is like, well, this sounds great in theory. Now, how do I do that? How do I get that into my life?
Right.
So it'll all be under that same daily Ikigai banner, but IkiQuest, because we're all on a quest live out our best life, right?
So in Iki Quest, are you giving them tasks and things that they'll be doing? Is that what's happening inside the quest, or are
Yeah,
you selling them?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll bundle under like that'll be classes, that'll be meditations, that'll be things like
Nice.
that will enable people to do the practice work, if you will.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
So how do
Yeah,
people
thanks.
get in touch with you, sign up for the Daily Ikigai? How do they do all that?
Yeah, so they can go to dailyikigai.substack.com, and you can actually directly email me through that.
Spell
You
Ikigai
go
really quick so I don't screw it up.
Ikigai,
Okay.
Ikigai. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ikigai.
nothing
Right.
like it's spelled, right?
No, it's
It's
not.
Ikigai. Got
It's
it.
yeah, Ikigai. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then otherwise, you can reach me at on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you guys to go follow him in both places. David, it's been a lot of fun, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. And dude, keep spreading the word. You really put out some great stuff that I love following.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.